so excited to like talk to you about all this stuff. Oh my God. Okay, cool. So yeah, it'd just be great to start kind of with an introduction. So whatever you want to delve into, what do you want people to know most about you? Like where you grew up, how you got started modeling, like all that kind of stuff.
Okay, yeah. I mean, like modeling was a huge part of my life. I started when I was 13, which is like crazy to think about right now. So I guess I was doing it for about 15 years. Um, it was a big part of my life because I love traveling so much. And for me, that was just such an amazing way to see the world and to meet different people and really like grew me into like a nice rounded person. But yeah, I mean, over such a long time, I had obviously a lot of positive experiences, but also a lot of negative experiences. So I'm really shocked at like where I actually am today because I really didn't think that I would be in a position where I'm working within and like promoting the industry. So yeah, it's a very interesting sort of full circle turnaround on that, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Out of your experience of being a model, you created this kind of incredible business and of your own. So how would you say that your experience as a model led to you starting the agency?
Well, I think like, I mean, having experience in front of the camera will, you know, help you exponentially in working behind the camera.
Yeah.
I actually worked a while as a talent agent when I was quite a lot younger with actors, so very different industry. But even at that time, like just being in a position before where I had an agent, like it helped me so much with knowing, you know, what did I expect from my agent, maybe that I didn't get, or how would have preferred to be communicated with and things like that. So that's when I began to like bring that to the table. I was only 21 at the time when I first was a talent agent. So it was just something I totally fell into. But now, I mean, just from all the experiences I've had, yeah, it's just, to me, it's more about bringing more of a human factor to it and a person that you feel comfortable with and that you can be vulnerable with as well, and that you know and believe and trust that they care about you. And I just feel like in the modeling industry, that is just extremely important because I couldn't say that I had that at all when I was
Yeah.
doing it. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And funnily enough, Naomi Campbell started this like YouTube series that she's calling No Filter, which I think is a perfect name for it for sure. But she was interviewing Carly Kloss the other day, and the last about 15 minutes, Carly was discussing how she actually stayed with IMG, but she got a manager. So she got someone who is kind of like a go-between. So she didn't have to deal with the agents herself. And the manager just kind of stuck up for her and got her the jobs that she wanted. And she felt more powerful and she was able to kind of control her own image more. And I found that very interesting that Carly came forward and saying that, because I think very few people know that she probably has a manager and she's not just represented by IMG. So yeah, that was a super interesting thing for them to discuss. And kind of Naomi said, like, yeah, it's agencies always forget that they work for the model, but it's always kind of,
Exactly.
yeah, it's always seems to be this power struggle between kind of model and agent because you need each other, but instead of being kind of mutually beneficial, it can turn very sour sometimes. So
Definitely.
yeah,
I
it's
think
very
that like
interesting.
within like when I'm having my initial meetings with people,
Yeah.
I definitely bring up the factor that like you are employing me to find you work, but at the same time, how I would like to work with you is it's for it to be a partnership so that we're both working together for a mutual goal rather than there being a hierarchy because it can go either way. I've seen that especially with actors, like, you know, sometimes they can act like they're above their agent and they know best and vice versa. I mean, I feel like more with models, they feel like they have to listen to everything you say when you're an agent and that, you know, they're doing everything for you rather than for themselves. So
Yeah.
I really try to make that clear that like, I want to have a partnership.
Yeah.
But I also find that like, I mean, that's great that Carly Kloss is like, you know, taking a stand and like getting somebody to vouch for her. But I also find it really sad that like she needs to have a middleman in between her and her agency. Like that's so horrible.
I know. I know it is crazy, but I've heard of a couple girls. She's not the first, but I think she's the
Yeah.
first one who's kind of shot into superstardom that has come out and admitted that they have a manager. But I've met quite a few of my friends I didn't know, but they do have managers because they just
Yeah.
said I didn't want to deal with the agency anymore. I wanted someone to do that for me and be my spokesperson. And yeah, it was definitely eye-opening for me for sure. Cause
Yeah.
that was my same reaction too. I was like,
Yeah, well, because
yeah,
like in the acting world, people have managers, but
right,
it's not necessarily for them to deal with their agent because they'll have
right.
both. It's more like a publicity thing, just, dealing with clients and things like that. So, yeah, very, very interesting. It's
Yeah.
I don't know, with those like agent giants as I call them, I guess they're like pretty instilled in the industry, and if that's the way to navigate around them, then I mean, good on those girls for doing that for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of
Yeah.
like looking out for yourself. And of course, so many people when they are more educated on the way kind of modeling works, because obviously I think very few people know what modeling entails and even less know how modeling agencies function. It just seems like it's not kind of popular knowledge or general knowledge, I would say. But
Yeah.
the people that are a little bit switched onto it, they always bring up how something that's so different between the acting world and the modeling world is that there's no union for models and there's no kind of general governing body that overlooks everybody. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's something that comes up now and again. But do you have any thoughts on that at all? Like being in both worlds, I bet you can vouch to
I
both.
mean, yes, definitely. I mean, the most basic one, like from an agent's perspective, is payment.
Yeah,
When I was a model, I mean, it was in my mind that when I booked a job, I wouldn't see that paycheck for 6 months at least.
totally.
Um, Within the acting industry, because mostly everything's under the union,
Yeah,
they have to be paid within a month, and like it's just the law.
yeah,
um, and you can enforce that. So that's kind of one solid thing. I'm trying to change that within the industry here for sure. I'm trying to be on top of those things and trying to sort of teach newer clients as well to have a quicker turnaround,
yeah,
because yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. Why would you book somebody for a job if you can't pay them? um,
totally.
so anyway, but yeah, so that's sort of one thing. And the other thing is just having somebody having like maybe not like a set of rules, but just like regulations set up, um, to avoid uncomfortable situations or people getting taken advantage of.
Yeah,
I was just talking to an agent actually today who places people in Asia, and she was saying that
yeah,
she can't even work with so many agencies over there anymore because they're breaching their contracts and they're not, following the guidelines that they're even setting up for people they're bringing over. And yeah, it makes it so difficult because it's almost like you are in a situation where anything can happen and you don't have any control over it. And it shouldn't be that. I mean, there's no point in doing it if that's how you feel, in my opinion. I don't know.
no,
So
absolutely. And I think it's scary for both the model and the agent because the agent, like, of course, unfortunately, not all modeling agencies are reputable. The reputable ones that care about the girls, like, they want the best for the girl as well. And it's just, they feel, I think, that their hands are tied in a way because they're trying to do their best, but there's no governing body even helping them to kind of restrict these actions at all. And it's
yeah.
just, yeah, it's very like, it's an unfortunate situation. And I know that Sarah Ziff and there's like certain people, I think Sarah is probably the first one who runs, well, there's Responsible Trust for Models, who's Elizabeth Payton, and then Models Alliance with Sarah Ziff. And that's exactly what she's trying to do is get laws passed. She's got a few laws passed in New York. She ran the Victoria's Secret kind of when she rallied like outside and got all of the CEO to step down. So that was pretty incredible. And that's what she's pushing is for like heightened regulation and for more changing room backstage and just like simple things and like girls to have a chaperone if they're under 16 or if they're under 18 and just little things that should have always been there. But it's so unfortunate, like just getting laws passed in New York, but let alone globally. It's just such a feat, right?
Definitely. And I'm not even sure. I mean, because so many people ask me, especially now that I have a business, well, how does this work when you place
Yeah.
somebody here? And like, well, how does it work when you're negotiating a rate? How do you do it? And I'm like, it's like the Wild West. It's all a gray area. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's just
Gosh.
nothing set in stone really, aside from, word of mouth and,
Yeah.
what people think. And I just find that crazy, like
Yeah.
so crazy coming from such a structured industry because I work in both industries. So I'm working on the structured industry and then moving to the Wild West. It's so crazy. And I mean, although they're different, they're very similar in a way. I mean, you're booking talent for a job.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why modeling sort of fell through the cracks and wasn't sort of taken care of. It's really sad because I find it's definitely the more vulnerable industry. I mean, you're working with young people on their own. So yeah, I mean, what's more vulnerable than that?
Yeah.
But
Absolutely. And the majority of them being women and the majority of them being underage. So they're
exactly.
in the most vulnerable category.
Mhm.
And I totally agree. And I have no idea why it fell through the cracks. The only thing kind of like out of all my research or what I like studied during my master's program that came up, that is the only thing that I can think of, is that some people said that when modeling first began, it was seen almost like it fell into the umbrella of prostitution in a
I knew
very
you were
weird
gonna say
way.
that.
Okay, that you're like, I know this.
Well, no, it's not even that. Like, I know
Right.
it's like this
Yeah,
feeling you have, right? Like, it's this weird stigma about it.
very weird. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing, is for some reason kind of like actors were completely elevated from having any kind of, I don't really like, reputation that way, or a tainted reputation. Like what they did was art, but modeling was prostitution. It's crazy. And that's such an old school mentality to have. And I don't think it really exists today. But yeah, that's all I can think of, is it kind of came up in research, is that apparently when it first started, that was kind of the connotation with it. So maybe that's why the enhanced regulations weren't around it, because they put it in that category. I don't know. But
That's incredible.
but like, get with the times, people. We've moved on since then.
Yeah,
So.
seriously. Oh my goodness.
Oh my god. Yeah,
That's
it's
okay.
yeah, brutal. So next question. what
Yeah,
do
yeah.
you what do you think was missing in the industry that led you to kind of create a modeling agency that, I call it holistic. Do you use that word to
Yeah,
describe?
definitely.
Okay.
That's kind of how I'm promoting myself now because
Okay,
it
perfect.
really is like the sense of what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
To be honest, like I love working with people. That's why I was a talent agent. But yeah, so I was very, very hesitant to step into this side of things just because I really knew what it was all about, and I knew it was ugly, and I didn't know if I could tackle it. But then I kind of saw it definitely as an opportunity, and I said to my business partner at the time, the only way I'm doing this is if I do it right, and if we, change things.
And you started Alaeria 2 years ago now, right? Is it your
Yes,
2-year
exactly.
anniversary?
Now I
Okay.
remember. Like I was like, I'm going off on this tangent, and I don't remember what the question was. But
That's
it's basically like what I'm doing with the agency. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is bringing that human aspect.
yeah.
I'm a human. You're a human. We communicate. We care about each other. There's a relationship built there. There's a trust built there. I feel like that's really important to have that with somebody who's basically selling you as a commodity.
Yes.
So yeah, right. um, the second thing was to bring in a wellness aspect, because I mean it's quite obvious that models need to have, well, are expected to have, to be fit and healthy and to have long shiny mermaid hair and toned bodies and not have acne and whatever, all that kind of stuff.
Of course.
um, so there's a lot of pressure in the industry, and I wanted to create a platform where I would create sort of wellness workshops in different formats for models to be able to come together and spend time with each other and have that camaraderie, but also to feel more comfortable with themselves mentally, physically, especially for the younger models. Like how to eat healthy. Let's talk about mental illness. Let's talk about anxiety. Let's talk about depression, which is, funnily enough, something that people really wanted to talk about more. Um,
Absolutely.
and just little things like that, just opening the door to conversation about uncomfortable topics, and also just being able to provide some knowledge, to help. And yeah, so that's kind
Amazing.
of what I'm about. I'm about the connection, the human connection, about wellness. And then the other sort of bigger side of the agency as well is just giving a platform to people who wouldn't necessarily have it. So as we know, there's like, if you're an inch shorter than 5'9", or if you're a size, 8 and not a 6, and if things like that, that a lot of agencies and or clients will just sort of, close the door on you. And I've learned, through this time of having Alaeria, that that's totally untrue, and that giving those people a platform is just giving clients an option to see them, and choose them for their campaign, based off the fact that they have a great look and a great energy and a great personality. And so I feel like when I'm scouting people, I'm looking at people's energy, their personality, who they are, what they're going to bring to the set. I'm not looking for, this is like what I was, like 13-year-old shell of a person who's beautiful, tall and thin, but like she hasn't yet developed in herself. She doesn't yet know herself and her body, and like how to work it, and how to, you can tell when a model is confident within themselves and they're kind of telling a story in a shoot. And I honestly felt like I couldn't do that when I was younger. And I was like, I'm not good at this. Like, I'm not good at being a model because I'm not creative enough in my posing, when I was comparing myself to like supermodels in magazines. And I'm like, why can't I bring that to the table? And now, as a 31-year-old, when I look back, I'm like, it's because you didn't know who you were yet. Like, I feel like if I modeled now, I'd be so much more confident, more expressive and interesting. Right?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
like, yeah, anyway, long story short, I'm looking for people who have like a lot to share and
Yeah.
who are interesting. And I feel like that's kind of the trend that's shifting, is that clients want to work with interesting people. So
Absolutely. And even though it may be the trend, I think you're thinking so far ahead that it's not like you're just riding the wave or you started this to like be in style. Like that's absolutely not the vibe I get, but absolutely it's
yeah.
finally becoming a trend. And I think it's such a long time coming. So it's so like refreshing to hear it. And I totally understand what you're saying about exactly like the shell 13-year-olds, because unfortunately when a lot of the girls are scouted, they don't really have personality because they're not developed as people yet. They don't really know who they are, as you're saying. And that comes with experience. It comes with time that you get to learn yourself and you develop that personality, and they're really thrown into this world where they're usually not very prepared for it. I think a lot of people, it doesn't really matter how old you are, you're not really prepared for it. It's a completely other world in so many different ways. And but when I did Paris Fashion Week this past year, it was so refreshing to hear some of the designers that when we were in castings, they kept repeating that they didn't want these young girls. So these 14-year-olds would show up and they would be absolute waifs, as is the France way.
Yeah.
And they said, like, absolutely not. You need to send me more realistic girls, or you need to send me girls like a little bit more curvy, or I want them, it doesn't matter if they're a little bit shorter, but I want more personalities and I want a bit more diversity. And it was so nice to hear that coming from designers in Paris of all places. And I thought, oh my God, like it might actually be changing. So yeah.
Yeah, I have a similar experience where I met with one of an agent from Paris, from one of like the oldest agencies in the city, and he was even telling me how they're really trying to do 18 plus, and that LVMH, instilled that in their policy. And I was just like, oh my gosh, because Paris is like the one that I found it was the worst when I was modeling, because I was like, you have to be the skinniest, you have to be like, it was just so intense. Like it was the one place where I felt the most pressure, like aside from New York. But I feel like New York has a different vibe. Like they still kind of liked the cool people, but like Paris was so like stuck in their mold of like what they wanted, like you said,
Absolutely.
the waif.
Yeah.
And so just hearing that there's that conversation, that people are talking about that, and is so interesting. Do you feel
Yes.
do you feel like the Instagram influencing kind, I mean, like, yeah, with a grain of salt we talk about that, but do you feel like they have that sort of whole thing is part of the change in the industry because they are more real people?
I think it's definitely helping for sure, like in different ways. And but people were so brutal to them when they first kind of came on the scene. And now I think things have really shifted. And I think because they saw the value of them finally, but it took the industry so long to see the value of social media. And it's
Mm.
interesting because every single kind of like backstage interview you watch, that's all people ever say now is like, wow, social media has really changed things. It's like, so
Yeah, yeah.
what a thought. I think so for sure. And that's why that's the part that I love about influencers. And so many of the ones that I met that were represented by Premiere when I was living and working in London was they were such lovely people and just
Mm.
very down to earth. And they kind of, and they just had all of these kind of like this mission statement just to be more accessible and be more real. And you look at kind of their YouTube videos or you look at their followings and it's just people like them. Like I don't know, it was just very cool. Like so I think they reached a whole new level of even like youth that fashion didn't before because fashion seems like it's so unattainable in a way or untouchable. So
Yeah.
people really like connected with influencers because they're like, oh, this person looks like me, they wear clothes that I like, so I'm going to follow them and then be very invested in their life. And then they
Mm.
started being included in fashion. So I think it's really kept fashion going into the youth because now people are following
Yeah.
influencers that are going to shows. Whereas before it's like, I don't think many 13-year-olds were like streaming Paris Fashion Week, but now that's happening. So it's kind of like, I don't know, it's definitely interesting. And I never thought about before, but I think you're definitely onto something. I think having more realistic body types and more diversity, even in the front row, has probably helped for sure. And
Yeah.
plus, they want to dress the influencers, so they need to have something that represents them on the runway as well. So it's like, I don't know. But Rihanna was probably one of the first people to do it in like a huge way, is to just
Yeah.
have like this absolute diversity cool thing going on and being like, hey, I'm going to do my own fashion show with girls that represent me and that represent other people in these minority groups that just aren't seen in fashion ever.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, I think it had a huge role in it for sure. I don't know. That's a really good thought. So smart. Oh my God. So I feel like we've already covered this, but it said, what is your main differentiator that sets you apart from other modeling agencies? There we go. That's English. But I think it definitely is your wellness aspect. And then, so my understanding is you have nutritionists, you have,
Yeah. So
okay.
just to like delve more into that,
Yeah.
I do have a nutritionist that I work with. I have a naturopath that I work with, a holistic personal trainer, which I really love. I love that we're all like,
Cool.
doing this. It's really great. All women, but funnily enough, most of my male models love to come to these
Oh
events.
my
And
God.
I had a skincare one where I partnered with the skincare brand, a local one, and they just taught about, how to take care of your skin, what kind of products to use, what not to use, and answered a bunch of little questions. And mostly guys showed up to it. And I was
So
so happy
fun.
yeah, to see that.
Like, thank you.
But yeah, it's kind of like there's no rules with my wellness program. It's kind of like I actually send out surveys here and there to my models to see what they're interested in having and doing,
Very cool.
and kind of what they liked and what they didn't like, and we've gotten really positive results, which is great. But yeah, it's kind of like the sky's the limit, and it's really exciting. It's something that I pay out of pocket, like I have to say, like it's not free, and I'm happy to. I feel like it's such a wonderful investment into the agency, and at the very least, like I just love when everyone gets together, and I feel like they like it for that as well. And it just brings us all together. And, I don't know. It's great. It's great to see young people like asking questions and getting involved, and being very vulnerable as well. And I just feel like it's really healthy to have everybody there and being open. And even if they're not open, they're listening to other people being open, and they're probably, registering that and thinking about themselves. And yeah, it's just things that I never did when I was modeling or really thought about on that level. And I really wish that it was available to me. And it just makes sense. It just
Yeah.
makes sense at the end of the day.
It
So,
absolutely does.
yeah.
And even feeling like a support from like your fellow like peers, as in like other models that are even in your
Yeah.
agency, like some such close friends I met like through modeling and in agencies and everything, but very few of us actually were able to like spend time away from modeling, because it's either we were working too much or we were separated or traveling different places. So it's so nice to think of the agency like as this nuclear little like extended family, where
Mhm.
even like if they can't get a hold of you, if something happened, they could always call someone else and like feel
Yeah.
that support. I think it's so important. And there's definitely like anxiety issues with the entire model. It's just so many people I even talk to, they're worried about certain things like traveling, and it's normal. Like a lot of us do have a lot of anxiety about certain things, and especially roles that we feel like we can't control, or it's like we don't know when we're traveling or might get the call right before, and it's scary to not have this exact timeline set out about what you're doing or what the future holds exactly. So I think that's where a lot of like the anxious feelings come from, I think, is just that feeling of not being in complete power of like your own person kind of thing, and being like, okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
So it's so
Uh,
awesome.
this is a good segue, actually. I'm sort of building on a workshop based on modeling that I will be hosting for my models. That is sort of like it's sort of like the 101 basics, but also I want them to really understand what the industry used to be like, and what I want it to be like, and sort of how it's changing, because I feel like it's really important to understand that. So I'm definitely going to be getting together with small groups of my models and just sort of discussing everything from rates to traveling to what's expected, but then like how do we sort of blur that and make it our own, and just talking about embracing personality and how to highlight that through either your style or just like the way you like show more of you, rather than like the black leggings and black tank top and like black heels and
Yeah,
like da, da, da. Like I know that that's kind of a thing sometimes because they
yeah,
want to see you as a blank canvas, but
of course.
at the same time, yeah, just moving beyond that and just really want to do like an in-depth knowledge session, because I feel like some models, maybe they feel a bit spoilt by how the situation is now with like I'm giving them so much communication and they just expect a lot, but it's kind of like you need to know where we've come from and where we are now. The sort of theme of what I'm trying to do is just educate
Yes.
so that I always felt like I was guessing, like I wasn't really sure, and for some reason I was almost convinced that was okay, that I didn't know. And I don't know why I thought that was all right, but I mean, I didn't understand. I just took it at face value and just kind of trusted what my agents said and things like that. And I just feel like that's the main thing I hear from like models who are sort of doing their own thing now, or they used to be with an agency before and now they're self-represented, is that they really didn't understand how it all worked and how it was structured and put together, and yeah, what their worth was, and that kind of thing. So
So accurate. And it's so difficult that I've found that even when I'm sure people reach out to you all the time, like not just because you actually have your own agency now, but even when you were modeling, like usually you get a lot of girls kind of just messaging you being like, hey, how did you get started? Like, do you have any
yeah.
tips? I don't know if you've
Mhm.
gotten that, but I know a lot of my friends have gotten it. I've gotten a lot of it. And it's tough, right? Because you have a responsibility to those girls to be like, okay, you should be informed about your decision if you want to start modeling. Like it's a life-changing decision, so you really need
Yeah.
to have information to make that informed decision. But the thing is that I can imagine that the moms struggle with. My mom wasn't going to let me do anything. I kind of went behind her back and kind of started and was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, I don't totally suck at this, so I guess I should probably come clean before it gets more out of hand. So
Yeah,
that's how it started with me. But there's no information online about it to even inform yourself. So when you start off as a model or even as a concerned parent, it's very tough, and you're only looking to the agencies because that's your only source. Is
Yeah.
so speaking to models that have done it, or maybe a family friend that did it years ago that started. That's kind of where my mom went. She knew someone that used to run an agency in Vancouver. So she's like, what do you think? Emily really wants to do this. So you kind of look to friends and mentors and people that are informed, but yeah, you can't really do your own research. So I think that's a huge thing as well. And that's probably why a lot of people are okay in that guessing state, because there's no really other option. You kind of, you feel your way through, or you try and get pockets of information from other people. Kind of through this whole pandemic situation, has it been shifting anything for you, like currently right now? I know a lot of people are shifting more to like the models shooting things in their own houses right now and kind of doing more of the influencer thing.
Yeah.
But do you see this kind of like, how do you feel that you're going to be operating in kind of this new world, even if we go back to a sort of normal thing where we're finally outside again and things like that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've already like linked in with a lot of clients about doing the at home stuff
Cool.
because, because the younger generation is so good at taking photos and having that presence on Instagram, whether they're an influencer or not.
Yeah.
So I feel like they just have that edge of like, they know what they're doing. So it's that much more possible. So we're just trying to sort of work around it, like, product drop off, that kind of thing.
Perfect.
Even having this kind of Zoom call going while they're doing the shoot.
Yeah.
But I think like, aside from me, I kind of love what's going on because, you'll go on Zara and you'll see, one of their models, she's a supermodel and she's at home, sitting in her kitchen on the chair with the clothes. And I'm like, oh, so that's what it will look like, if I'm sitting on the chair, like in my kitchen. And it just feels so real. Like it's not clipped. It's not like she hasn't been like, touched up. And I love that human aspect, especially when you're like shopping on like through e-commerce and you're like, you really want to know what this thing looks like because you're buying it online. And so I just find it so refreshing to like see all that new, like innovative, shooting from home kind of thing. So I don't think it's like a bad thing
No.
that's happening. I hope that some of that aspect stays in a way, because I feel like it's really beautiful and nice. To see people in their natural element. And I feel like that's such a huge selling factor. And like, it brings that connection rather than that unattainable goddess, on e-com that, is wearing this perfectly. It's like, this mother that, she's a model too, but she's at home
Oh my
and she's
gosh.
comfortable in her environment. It's just so beautiful to me to see that. And I love that. So I think that that's really great. And I'm hoping that that's part of the change, is seeing more humans.
Yes, exactly. Me too. I love that answer. I haven't seen that. So this is the first thing I'm going to do when we end this call is
Yeah,
like check out
check it
Zara.
out.
So they're just
Yeah.
in their kitchen, just like hanging out, doing
Yeah.
like,
Like this one model,
I love
she's like
this.
older and she's just like in her kitchen and they have her in the e-com and like in her garden and like whatever. And she's just chilling and I love it. And she's just all natural and it's beautiful. And I just like, to me, that makes me want to buy it more than.
Totally. Absolutely. I totally hope that that stays. Oh my God. And in
Yeah.
terms of like the clip thing, because most people have no idea what that is, guys, when you buy stuff online, it is all clips. So when it comes and it doesn't fit your body perfectly, that's because they literally have like industrial like clip things at the back, and when you turn to the side, they do it on your side. And it's
Yeah.
like, and then it's just photoshopped out. But so many people don't know that, because how would they, right? Unless you
Exactly.
like,
So, when you're looking at that she hasn't clipped herself and she's just natural. So yeah,
totally,
it's really
totally.
beautiful. And I think that that's sort of like the bright side of what's happening is that I mean, not to get too much into this, but like how sort of celebrity right now doesn't really mean very much because nothing's really going on and everyone's kind of in the same boat. So I feel like it's just beautiful that like it feels like even this unattainable industry is like coming down to like the human, like, you know, models at home and like all this. I like that. It's nice. I mean, there's obviously like the other side of it where there's quite wealthy individuals trying to do like these super styled and beautiful at home shoots where I'm like, well,
No.
we can't all do that. So there's that side of it too. But for the most part, yeah, it's nice.
I know. I'm absolutely loving that too. And it's something that I wish had come sooner. And I wish it hadn't taken like a global pandemic for us to shift this way. But
Yeah.
totally. And even like I've been listening to so many podcasts, watching so many of like the Vogue series that they post online, like just
Mhm.
kind of like educating about myself about what's going on in fashion and how industry leaders are accepting it and what's changing for them. And they're just being so candid and so honest. Like Marc Jacobs sitting at the Mercer Hotel, he just sold his house. And he's sitting there, he's like, I'm not creating anything. I can't even produce my next line. All the textiles are in Italy, can't get them out. So I'm just sitting here. He's like petting his dog, talking to Vogue. I'm like, love it, love it.
Yeah.
Like, and Mark's like, everyone needs to stop saying it'll go back to normal. This is our new normal. Everyone needs to get a reality check. I'm like, I love this man so much. It's kind of nice to even see the people at that level of fashion just really leaning into it. It's kind of nice. For
Yeah.
sure.
I
I
love
know. Me
it.
too. um, okay, so yeah, that's talking more about the future, but specifically, where do you think modeling as a career is headed in the future? Like, do you see any major shifts coming, or do you kind of, other than obviously seeing more like realistic images portrayed of models, like, do you think that as a career anything will shift like monumentally?
I mean, I'm hoping it will. Just, you know, in the past 5, 10 years, seeing agencies that are just based on, you know, plus size models or curvy, like that they're doing that and that's their basis. Like, I love that. And I think that's just, you know, will work off of the fact that kind of what I'm saying is that you can be a model if like if you're interesting, if you have an interesting look, if you have an interesting vibe, like, and I know it's like kind of controversial because then it's like, oh, like we think about like, you know, but then like what happens to like us or the way it used to be in this classic way of things, but you know, we can still appreciate that as well, but also give a platform and a chance for other people who don't fit into that mold. So I feel like it will just really shift more. It'll just open up, I feel like, as an opportunity for people who maybe thought that they couldn't do it before because of like the strict rules. I'm really, really hoping that it moves into an 18 plus thing because I really
Cool.
feel like, although I was very fortunate to be able to travel the world when I was like, you know, 15 and 16, like that's really awesome. And I got some great experiences. My dad was there for a lot of it, which I'm
Aw.
thankful for. But like, you know, then I think of, you know, the girls that I met from Brazil who are 14 and dropped out of high school and they're in China trying to make money to, you know, buy a house for their family. They shouldn't have to have that kind of a burden at that age and that kind of pressure. And they're still kids. You need to like enjoy being a young person. Being thrust so much into adulthood when you're that young is not healthy. So I feel like if it can trend up to like the 18 plus, that'd be great. And then I feel like it'll just, you know, be a point where people are starting to, you know, be comfortable within their own body and understand who they are more.
Yeah.
And it'll just bring like that another layer to, you know, a shoot and that kind of thing. And it'll just be more interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then on that end, maybe we can push the age range up more too.
Keep it going. Just keep it
And not be
going.
like, oh, I'm 25, I guess I'm retiring now.
Yeah, and not have May Musk as like tokenism, but actually have that as like a standard for sure.
Yeah,
Would be super cool. Yeah. Okay.
exactly. It just makes sense like when you see like, you know, Netflix and all these platforms and we're seeing different types of entertainment and different types of people, like we're just going to get bored if we see the same type of human over and over again. So Yeah. I mean, those shows that you were talking about with the Fenty and the real people. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what you want to watch. It's interesting.
Totally. It is
You're,
interesting. I know. Like one of my friends said the other day, she's just like, I don't even want to look at pretty people. I just want to see something like really like weird and like interesting. I'm like, yeah, I totally get that.
I just
Exactly.
feel like that's what we're about now. I don't know. We
Yeah,
want some change. We want something different.
absolutely. Oh
Yeah.
my
So
gosh. I
that's
know.
what I think is going to happen. I
Okay.
think it will
There we
happen.
go. Exactly. Like power of positive thinking. Absolutely. No, let's just keep
Yeah.
thinking that way. So, yeah. So I guess final question is kind of, is there anything else you want to add? And is there anything that you're specifically like looking forward to, maybe like right now or when things calm down a little bit?
Yeah, just like wanting to be more an advocate of change. And that's like a sort of growing ideal that I have. And at first, I just wanted to start the agency to try it. And now that it's actually going well and it's running for itself, now it's the point where, okay, how do we promote change? Like, how do we really make a difference? Which is talking to people like you, coming together as a community, as a network of people, especially in Canada, and trying to, create more of a union of models and, things to make the industry more functional and, more humble and safer.
Totally.
So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. And I also just wanted to note as well that I really love that there's other agencies like mine out there, especially in BC, who are really trying to promote change. And we're friendly with each other, which is so
Yeah.
nice. Like it's not a competitive thing. It's like we want to help each other because at the end of the day we're trying to do the same thing. We're trying to promote the same thing. And yeah, it's really beautiful. It's nice. So I just look forward to more of that, more of a community, more of a network, people helping people.
Absolutely. And showing a united front for such an applaudable cause, sorry, clause, an applaudable cause, there we go, is really incredible. And it is super beautiful. And even though it's so great that like Sarah Ziff is doing incredible things in the US, and then you have like Elizabeth doing great things in the UK, like who's being that advocate for Canada? So it would be so nice. So even if kind of, yeah, we could all band together and make a change even in Canada, just for Canada's standards and practices. And I think that would be a really great thing. So yeah,
Yeah, I think
super
that's the
inspiring.
future. We're gonna do this.
We're gonna do this thing. Absolutely.
It was really nice to talk about what I do.
Yeah.
And keep in touch, and we'll chat soon.
Yay. We will chat soon. Thank you so much for doing it. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
thank you.
And keep on.